Call the meeting to order. Roll call? Yes. Okay, I want to make. Like
Boudreaux.
Boudreaux. Okay, all right, I'm gonna get it right next time. Boudreaux,
No problem.
please call the roll.
Mayor Brown,
Present.
Councilmember King,
Present.
Councilmember McLean.
Here.
City Manager Halenga,
Present.
Finance Director Basadika.
Here.
And Clerk Boudreaux, also present.
All right, thank you. Please rise as you're able for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will entertain a motion for agenda approval.
So moved.
Support. Moved and supported. Any additions, subtractions, amendments? Seeing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, this is our first opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address council, you'll have 3 minutes to do so. I'm sure there's no one signed up out there, so if there's anyone in the audience or on Zoom.
No one is on Zoom, Mayor.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move straight into our presentations. I know, so our last meeting, we went over some general outline stuff for the budget. And so this time we're digging a little deeper into our police and fire expenditures. And so first we'll have Chief Moore. Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present on some of our capital expenditures in the police department. Before we do that, I'd like to start with our organizational chart and explain the relevancy to our budget process. When I arrived at YPD, the organization was not split into 2 divisions. So since my arrival, I've split us into field services and the support services division. Also, when I arrived, we had a total of 5 lieutenants. I've since restructured the organization, and now we have 2 lieutenants, 1 captain. And with those, with the salary savings and changes, I've been able to add additional officers to road patrol and to create and establish our community relations unit, along with adding additional personnel to investigations. Now, although all of those entities haven't been built out yet, we're getting close. It was important for me to align the organization to maximize, to stay within our budget, but maximize our officers. I wanted to put more officers on the street and in specialized assignments so that we can adequately serve the city and the needs. Next slide, please. The first capital improvement and the major capital improvement I'd like to talk about is the Axon Taser replacement. Currently, the organization is utilizing the X2 Taser. The X2 Taser is beyond its lifespan, end of life. The lifespan of a taser is about 10 years. Those tasers came out in 2011. So we are well beyond life with that piece of equipment. There are several new options, of course, available. I've selected the Taser 7, and I have outlined here in the presentation the cost over the next 5 years. So for this year, the initial cost would be $29,109.79. October 2025, and again, this follows the same payment scale and rollout that we did for the previous tasers. So in October of 2025, it'll be $30,274.18. October 2026, $31,485.15. In October of 2027, $32,744 $34,054.55. And then lastly, October 28th, $34,054.33 for a total over the life of the contract of $157,668. This is a significant a piece of equipment for public safety. It is one of our less lethal options. It falls in lines with, of course, our de-escalation, and we want to have tools in the tool belts and options for officers to not have to use deadly force. And so this is one of those mid-range options that the officers currently have, but we need to upgrade that equipment. So again, it's beyond end of life. Axon will no longer be supporting the equipment, so we have to move to a different platform. Other improvements is some facility improvements, interior paint, and the removal of carpet off of our walls. We have started that process in the last cycle. We've completed our conference room. We took all of the carpet off the walls, redid the drywall, and made it a very nice space. The facility, of course, still has carpet throughout the building, which is unsanitary, and it contributes to what we believe to be some adverse health effects with allergies and so on and so forth. And the carpet has been there for a significant amount of time. So we think it's important to refresh the organization as we go. So we're doing that piece by piece. I don't have a dollar amount to that because it varies depending on the contractor. So I've been working with, have worked with DPS to work that piece out. So I don't have a dollar amount to that. Next slide, please. Fleet expenditures. Just last year, the last budget cycle, we purchased 2 vehicles with the intent that as soon as the next cycle hit, that we would be purchasing an additional 2 marked units at a total estimated cost of $115,000. And of course, that is the purchase of the vehicles, outfitting them with lights and sirens, and of course the interior configurations, computers, and all of the things that are necessary for road patrol. We'll also be trading in 1 vehicle. This is something that I implemented when I got here, is to try to recoup some of our expense in our vehicles. So during the last cycle, we traded in 2 vehicles to offset the costs of the last purchase, and we'll be doing the same thing with 1 vehicle to kind of offset the costs. So we're trying to save in any way we can. Another expense that is an important one is traffic cones. Currently, we don't have any traffic cones in our vehicles. Now, what are traffic cones utilized for? When we have accidents or any significant event where we need to divert traffic, we don't have the ability to safely redirect traffic, on the fly. So there are no cones in the vehicle. So we're only utilizing our rear strobes and our emergency lighting. Per, say NDOT or DDOT, with traffic consultants, when you're, altering traffic, there's a formula for how far in advance you need to notify motorists of, merging and changing of lanes. This is a unacceptable situation that we're working to correct. We're going to put those traffic cones in our vehicles, and it's part of, estimated cost of $15,000, and that is to put 10 cones in each vehicle. Next slide, please. Here's where the good stuff, the good news. I want to talk a little bit about our training and development, and this is significant because it's an important update for the organization. Since January of 2024, we've hired and trained or in training 17 lateral and cadet police officers for the Ypsilanti Police Department. Everyone is aware that hiring is a challenge in public safety, but with some of the changes that we've made, the intentionality of our recruitment process and streamlining our processes of onboarding, we've been able to onboard, a significant number of officers. So 17 is pretty serious, and we're proud of that. That's a lot of officers. Now, the costs to this. The cost to train each new cadet, that's someone who goes into the academy, is $25,000. Significant cost. However, that cost is offset by a grant that we've been utilizing that's provided by the state of Michigan. So we've been using that funding to offset the cost for the academy and some of the salary. So right now, I'm being told that that grant is going to run out this year. So, we're striking the iron while it's hot to make that happen. We currently have 7 vacancies in the organization. In the academy right now, we have a total of 6 people in the academy, with an additional person starting at the end of this month. We currently have 5 people that are still in the field in training, either it's in field training or the acclimation process. 2 officers got released to regular solo patrol as of today and tomorrow morning. So we're very happy about that, and that's going to help us tremendously. Next slide. These are more expenditures. In the budget process, I requested an additional $23,000 to be added to our training and development portion of the budget. And here's the reason why. We have had a significant deficit in leadership development and training and succession within the organization. And we have to raise the collective acumen of the organization and, of course, our supervision. We have a lot of new supervisors and new officers, and we have to make that investment. Some of the areas where I want to send people, we have 1 person in staff and command college right now. We just had one of our new sergeants, newly promoted sergeants, attend Women in Leadership. But I want to send all of our supervision at one time or another to begin the Federal Bureau of Investigation's leadership program. So that's a very intensive program on leadership development for public safety. We also are going to need to send 4 officers to investigation school to reestablish our investigations division. And then we're also going to have to do some shadow training with some of our sister and other agencies in different parts of the country to expose our investigators to different methodologies for investigating capital crimes. And then the last thing is in-service training. We have to increase our in-service training to, again, to raise the, the acumen and the proficiency of our cadre. So that increase is going to cover those, that expense. And that was my last slide. I'm ready for questions.
Questions?
You got some. I know he does.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Talked about the training budget that I think is offset by some Michigan funds.
Mhm.
Is that something that we will continue to need, since we're doing all the hiring now? Presumably, we won't have as much need in future years. Is that fair?
That's fair. With the 7 vacancies, we hope to fill those through a combination of lateral. With the lateral hires, they don't, of course, require a full academy. And so then we only incur the cost of outfitting them with, police equipment and gear. And so that's about $1,200 per person as opposed to $25,000. We're going to take advantage of the grant for as long as possible. I have a good ratio of new officers to lateral officers. It was important that we not completely fill the organization with all new officers. We definitely needed some experience to help, build the different culture that we have going in the organization. So to answer the question, we've been trying to make this happen, get all that we can now, through the hiring process. Like I said, we're hiring another individual at the end of the month. So it's been a significant number of candidates that we're utilizing, the grant to to offset the costs for us.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, sort of a general question.
Hmm?
Do you have a sense that sense of the needs of other departments in our surrounding areas and whether or not some of their needs are similar to our needs. And I think ahead to, what we may ask of Michigan legislature in their funding priorities in the future. And to the extent that it's not just us in Ypsilanti, but other jurisdictions as well, maybe we get a little bit more traction trying to bring some money here in future years that will then continue to take pressure off of the general fund.
I can say unequivocally that that is the case. We, across the state and across the country, we're experiencing the same deficit in availability of candidates or people that want to be involved in a profession. I believe it's starting to change. We're starting to see more interest. But I just had a meeting this morning with police chiefs from within Washtenaw County, Pittsfield, University, Michigan, Ann Arbor, FBI, local SAC, and we all have the same issue, and that's hiring and recruiting. And they wanted to bend my ear on what's my secret. How are we able to turn out the number that we have? And so I shared it's a complex answer. It's not just this one thing. It's some strategy, but also it's organizational change. How do you attract people? It's deliberate and being intentional with your recruitment methodology and in certain spaces. And so together, all of those things will help you yield a different result. But it is absolutely an issue that we all face in public safety. It is not singular to the city of Ypsilanti. So, we would encourage to petition, the legislature to continue, that providing those funds so that especially organizations like Ypsilanti, so smaller agencies, which is the majority of the state of Michigan, they really struggle in that area. It's very difficult. So again, by having the ability to utilize those funds, it also helped with the recruiting process. When you're asking an individual, let's say candidate anywhere from 21 years old to 35, that's kind of the sweet spot window. Those individuals could very well have a family or be working. So it's hard to say, I need you to stop working, invest in this career for 4 months without any pay. And oh, by the way, you got to pay, $8,000 for the academy. So we were missing out on what I believe to be some great candidates, but with the addition of those funds and us hiring, people through the academy. So now we've taken salary savings, hiring them at the city of Ypsilanti. So now they have insurance coverage for their family and all of those things that made it very attractive. And that's how we started to get the traction at Ypsilanti.
Madam Mayor, so I certainly appreciate the work you've done to attract so far and hope that will continue. Do you feel equally optimistic that you have the ability to retain?
I do. Through the onboarding and hiring process, and of course, they could be just pulling the wool over my eyes, but I was very intentional about why Ypsilanti. Why do you want to work in this organization? What is your intention for the future? Where do you see yourself? And we got to get into the nuances of those answers. And to a person, they all spoke about wanting to be in a place where they can call home, where they can spend the rest of their career. They no longer wanted to jump from agency to agency. And so that was very encouraging, and it was important to hear that and to understand, why the city of Ypsilanti. So I feel very strongly about the people that we're bringing into the organization. There's always going to be, those one-offs or, maybe two. But when you change the culture, when you create an environment that's equitable for everyone, it gives everybody the opportunity to compete, people want to stay, right? So we're creating and building a culture and environment of success. And so we're hoping that those things, along with our competitive wages and the retirement benefits that the city of Ypsilanti offers, will keep people in-house.
No more questions, Madam Mayor, but I'll just simply say I appreciate the work you've done so far, and as I told you, and I'll say it publicly as well, I've been impressed with the caliber of the people that you have brought on board, and look forward to working with you to support them, and hope that their tenure here in Ypsilanti will be a long one.
Thank you, sir.
I think what I'll just add, just in terms of conversation with the legislature for funding purposes. So I've been having some meetings, always meetings, but with a group of other mayors of smaller communities to try to work together to, you know, make sure that certain things end up in the budget. We'll just say that.
Okay.
And I think we're seeing some success and folks who are understanding the needs of, you know, communities who don't necessarily have that bandwidth to shoulder the weight of rebuilding, revitalizing, revamping. And I think there's a lot of other communities who are experiencing the same thing that we are, and have for a long time. We didn't talk about it, right? Nobody want to talk about the issues, the barriers. But we've been spending more time together and talking. And I actually have a meeting on Monday that I think directly, I was talking to our lobbyists as well, that is going to support not only our police department, but public safety in general. There's some funding that is possible on the table. So we just want to make sure that people know we're here and we need it. So it ends up in the budget. So that is important. And this information, this data is very important to be able to share around what we've been able to do with support and what additional support can do for us. So.
I did have one question, and my question was regarding the grant. Is it a time frame for the grant, or is it an amount?
It's an amount. It's when that money runs out. So it's a kind of first come, first serve basis. So right now, everyone that we've put through the academy have qualified for the grant. We haven't received word that the grant is done, but we've been getting, you know, it's been scuttlebug that the money is about to run out.
Thank you.
Of course.
City manager.
I also want to stress the need for training in all departments. And that's something that this budget's going to focus a lot on, so we can, you know, really bring our employees, get, you know, have them see that we're behind them, and also give them the appropriate training to be successful in this city. So that's something that we want to be focused in on in this fiscal year and the coming fiscal years. It's making sure people have the tools to do their jobs properly.
I really appreciate that. I think that's something that city manager, when you were clerk as well, you always made sure to focus, or try to, in the clerk's department, and we didn't always have the means to do it. But I know all the departments have talked about the need over the years. And so I do think it's important for us to prioritize this, even if it means, you know, taking a little bit of a hit early on, to really fortify our employees and let them know that we want them to be successful and we want to support them in that. What's important. Training is important. Ongoing development and professional development is so important. I have just a question. I always ask these questions. This might be for Reagan, actually. Or maybe for you, Chief, around the TASER replacement. So whenever we have these big contracts with like organizations who provide us either a service or an item, I always notice that the cost increases every year that you're utilizing this same equipment. Why? Or why for the case?
So specifically with, you know, with TASER, I don't know about some of the other contracts. We also have built in the, it's like the service. And with TASERs, there's a need with the training part. The training can be expensive, right? We have to expend, we need inert cartridges. And so that's, you know, very inexperienced. That's very expensive. They're calculating the inflation portion to that. But in our packet, you know, all we have to do is make a phone call. This is what I need, and it gets sent, right? So it takes the burden off of, you know, the kind of nickel and diming. It just puts it in a nice package so that we can have access to what we need, and it's already kind of you know, built out through the course of the you know, the life of the contract. So that's not necessarily the best answer, but it's you you know, especially on the front end, one of the things I stress with Axon with, you know, with this proposal, you know, because we had some, I told you about one of the, you know, it's significantly more expensive. You know, we are a small agency. We don't have the purchasing power, you know, a lot of larger agencies. And so, you know, coming in smaller, especially, you know, we're already basically in this budget cycle. So that's the buildup is so we can plan for it. So this is the cost. How do we spread this out where we can, you know, plan for it? So the increase is, it gives us a couple, you know, some years. So now we can budget and plan for the increase to meet the requirements of the contract.
And I feel like I heard you say this, but these new, the T7
Mhm.
are in the same ballpark in terms of cost as the previous one.
A little bit more expensive, but not tremendously. If, you know, from our, I have to look at the total. I don't know if you remember the total, but these are more expensive, not as expensive as their newest equipment, but we're right in the middle. This is, I feel like this will give us some time, as opposed to when we, you know, got the other ones, we didn't have a big window. This gives us a larger window with the support. So, you know, it's a better product. So I feel like we're in a you know, better space.
Thank you. Additional questions for Chief Moore?
Oh, Chief, probably, are you able to just share the number of personnel that we're gonna have on that organizational chart that you have from if to the,
Sworn or,
if we're gonna be fully.
if we're
staffed,
fully staffed, it'll be 33 sworn. And then let me get, that's including myself. With, we'll have 3 in our records section. I don't count the crossing guards in our budget. We'll have 2 in parking enforcement, the executive assistant. So
39?
39 total.
That actually raises a question for me. I almost forgot this one. So 3 in records, does that include the evidence room and
So,
all those-
so that role, we have somebody, we're paying somebody to do a dual role. So we've allocated, you know, time each week to do that.
Okay.
Eventually, you know, when we come to this body and look at that being a full-time role, but right now, we just don't have the capacity for it.
Thank you.
And for your information, what we did in the budget is, so for our amended budget, we adjusted it to the number of personnel that we currently have. And then the future for 24, 25 and 25, 26, we did budget for full staff.
Like 39.
Yes.
Thank you, Reagan.
Thank
Any burning questions left for Chief Moore? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Chief Hobbs, it's your turn. Good evening.
Hello. How you guys doing today?
Good, how are you?
So before I get started, I'd like to introduce my executive assistant, Liz Smith. I don't know if you guys all know Liz, but Liz decided to join me today during the presentation. Liz is my right hand in all this process. Before we get into the slides, I left some things out and seeing Chief Moore's presentation, I'm just going to talk about the organizational portion of it before we get into the slides, because the slide is all about the budget. So as far as the organizational chart is, we have 3 in administration, myself, the executive assistant, the fire marshal, and we have 21 in suppression. We have 3 shifts of 7. Each shift has 1 captain, 1 lieutenant, and 5 firefighters. Currently, we have 1 vacant position for a firefighter. We had 1 left at the beginning of April. We have 4 completed applications In order to keep that process kind of fair, I like to start with at least 5. So I'm trying to get at least one more complete applicant in place before we start doing interviews to fill that last position. You guys got any questions about that?
Can you just tell us again, okay, 21 fire suppression, 3 shifts, so a captain for each shift, a lieutenant. for
3
each-
shifts of 7.
3 shifts of 7 total.
Yep.
A captain on each one, lieutenant on each one.
And 5 in suppression, 5 firefighters. 24 total. To include the 3 in administration.
Okay. Thank you.
Is all set?
Yeah.
All right, first slide. I'm gonna have to put glasses on for that.
I was gonna say, I can't read that.
No, so what we did is we followed the budget, just like line item, just like it's being presented. I know Reagan had already started the budget process, and we went line item for line item to show any potential increases that and what we're asking for the dollar amount and why. So operating supplies would be the first one in fire suppression, and that's $14,000. That includes cleaning supplies, kitchen supplies, coffee, water, light bulbs. I can go through the whole list, hose nozzles, batteries, miscellaneous, and some services, if we run over different funds, we go back to that and we can get additional funds from that. So sometimes we may have to pay for plumbing and lawn care out of that same fund. So what that does for us is I try to manage the budget as best as I can. Some things we will order from Amazon. A lot of times our supplies are Liz and I go to Sam's once every week or two, and we pick them up and we bring them back, and we found out it's could be a little inconvenient sometime, but for us, it saves us money. It's the most efficient way to do it. It's the makes the most sense for our dollars. If we just ordered everything offline, had everything shipped in, that number would be greater than that. So to keep the costs down, we do a lot of our own shopping. Self-contained breathing apparatus, $9,000. That includes all annual inspections, maintenance, and parts replacements related to the SCBA's and the Cascade Air Bottle Filling Station, which is the self-contained breathing air that we are required to have. So we have our own system for filling our tanks, so what all departments do, and those have to be maintained and inspected annually. So do all our SCBA tanks, regulators, and everything. Every year they have to come in and they have to be inspected. We also have to do fit testing. So every year we have to have an outside agency come in to make sure everything fits properly. So those costs come out of that account. Turnout gear, $30,000. Personal protection gear replacement, cleaning, and maintenance. Every firefighter is required to have 2 sets of gear, for all 21 in suppression. I have a set. Doesn't get used anymore. And the fire marshal has one that has a set, but he does arson investigations. He typically he still uses his. What's going on right now is the state is providing a grant that we're going to apply for $3,500 per person for an additional set of gear because of the PFAS issues related to the firefighting gear. So I've been off work for a week or so for medical reasons. So when I plan to come back tomorrow and going to fill out the paperwork for the grant. And when that is taken, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get it. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow for $3,500 for each firefighter for a set of gear. Next one would be repair and maintenance, EMS. That's $17,000. That includes all medical supplies, life bands, medical waste services, EMS credits, and departmental state licensures. We have to have we have to be certified by the state annually. And so there's cost involved with that. We have to maintain a certain amount of equipment on each truck. So we have to keep that in stock. We have to maintain continuing education credits to keep your licensures. We have to cover a cost for that. And we also provide AEDs for all of the city buildings. So if there's an issue with an AED, we actually replaced AEDs in all the city buildings probably 2 years ago. And then we maintain those. If someone has an issue with AEDs, they don't have to go out and look for things. They just have to let us know that there's an issue with it, whether it be the pads or the batteries, and we will maintain those. Take that a step further. in discussions with Andrew and Reagan and Bonnie and the other department heads, Chief Moore. What I have now is I have 4 people who are certified to do CPR training, AED training. They're certified in advanced life support. We had people retire and we were lagging in that department. So now I have 4. I intend to do more. And the intent is to, and we already provide CPR training and AED training for the city, but we want to try to organize something so we can do City Hall at once. We already do fire extinguisher training and CPR for DPS and police. So our thing is to be able to provide this services for all city employees and pretty much anybody else. We do it for outside service agencies, but I kind of let them schedule that and do that on their own. And let some of it's at station, some of it's on site. If you have a church organization and they want us to teach them CPR, we now have the ability to do that. Contractual services, that's strictly our fire dispatch services, and we are contracted through HVA. That cost goes up annually. Reagan can attest to that. They share their personnel increases with the county agencies that use their services. So it's all the fire departments. The fire departments are all dispatched by HVA. The police departments are all dispatched by the sheriff's department out of central dispatch. So what they do is they take their annual raises, they increase our costs. They say 5% a year. That's what the raises they give their employees. It tends up being more than that because our run numbers are increasing. And as our run numbers increase, the costs increase also. So that number typically will change probably $5,000 a year on average. Reagan?
Yeah, we did 6,000, then 4,000.
Yeah. So on average, so that's the cost for dispatch services. And professional development and the ratings over it. See, now I got to put these on.
30.
At $30,000. Of that $30,000, that includes all training classes, materials, and continuing education credits that we provide in-house. We are now have the ability, because we've been putting more money into these funds to get outside instructors to come in. And how this works, we now have a fund set up so we can put money back into the budget. But before it was just all expenditures. So what happens is we got a high-rise training coming up. We identify that Eastern's going to let us use some of their facilities. And so we have outside instructors come in. Say to set this class up, it's $10,000. So you have to pay their travel fees, their lodging, their food and everything like that. And then you pay them for their services. So what we do is we now a lot of time we sell extra seats. Because we're beyond our personnel, we sell the additional seats to the automatic mutual aid partners. And then after the automatic mutual aid partners are notified, if there's additional seats, then we send it out to all our mutual aid partners, which would include the county. So that's so that there's $30,000 there, but odds are we'll never use that money because we're always going to be taking in and out of that account. So it's kind of like a fluctuating thing. And I didn't put on here staff and command, but I have talked to my officers, and my intention beginning next year is to start with my captains by seniority, to send one to staff and command each year till they're all through the process. We haven't sent anyone through staff and command at the City of Ypsilanti Fire Department in at least 10 years. So, fire suppression equipment, that is $20,000. And of that, you get hose bed dividers, sensors, crime scene tape, foam, chainsaw repairs, extinguisher recharges, replacement, regulators, and all other equipment related to fire suppression. That's pretty much a general catch-all for anything in the fire service, any type of equipment that comes out of that $20,000. It's mostly things that'll probably relate it to and go on the trucks. Okay. Next one. So so we're going into administration now. So we go office supplies, and that's $3,000. That's printing paper, pens, markers, tape, clips, toner, office, furniture replacement, monitors, etc. So pretty much anything we need to run the operation falls under office supplies. And again, we get a lot of these things we get from Sam's, and if we have to, we get them online. Postage, that speaks for itself. Stamps. And shipping cost. Contractual services for us Under that, we do a lawn service. We also do a plumbing service and appliance repair and maintenance out of that contractual service that come out of the administration portion of that. Professional development, that's $10,000 of that. That pretty much takes care of myself and the fire marshal, and Liz, if she wanted to do any type of classes. So we attend classes and conferences for the chief, or myself and the fire marshal. This includes arson classes, arson investigation, fire inspections, continuing education credits, because every time you get a certification or a licensure, you have to do your continuing ed credits to maintain those. Public education supplies, the fire marshal is in charge of public education pretty much for the fire service for the city. And his job is to reach out to the schools to see if they need anything. If it's just supplies, we have kids that come to the station. We have to have just these little red hats. We have hats and coloring books and different things on hand to talk to the kids about fire safety. And during the course of pretty much any student in Ypsilanti, through like preschool, elementary. At some point, they will see us on site on campus. We will go to the schools. We will do fire education for the schools. We do all this pretty much the elementary schools and Perry School and different schools, and we do that for all of them. And we take supplies when we do those things. And any equipment needed to conduct arson investigations. Fire Marshal Pope is expanding his knowledge all the time. He just spent 2 weeks at an arson class in Lansing provided by the state police. After obviously we have to pay for the class and the lodging, and he's gaining more knowledge. And as he's there, he's finding more things he needs to do, his investigations properly. And then as he comes back and say, you know what, I need this, and I was like, okay, cool, we got it, and we take it out of this fund. Where are we at now? Office equipment rental. That takes care of pretty much the where am I at? Water dispenser, printers. We just got a new printer. So we bought the Ricoh. We own the Ricoh, and we just got a new printer. So we have and so that takes care of all the costs related to that. And memberships and dues. We have a lot of memberships and dues, and it's 3,500. And I may have left something off of here. Obviously, we have the Prime account, SAMS, WAMA, that's the Washington Area Mutual Aid Association. All the associations that you're part of, they charge you a fee to be part of all these associations. International Association of Arson Investigators, Michigan Fire Inspector Society, Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs, Southeast Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs, NFPA, Washington County Hazmat Authority, the Hazmat team, the TRT team, Swiftwater Rescue Team, et cetera. So pretty much everybody charges you a fee or something, and we take these costs out of those funds. Truck maintenance for us is a huge thing. Oh, next slide. I'm sorry. I'm reading off here now. So truck maintenance on here, it's $100,000, and that includes all repairs and maintenance related to fire trucks and vehicles, and sometimes it's issues with the apparatus floor. We have gradually seen this cost increase. And this cost keeps increasing because of, like I said, the age of our fleets. And I've done that in the goal setting of the replacement schedule for the trucks, the years of the trucks, and when they were going to need to be taken out of service. And so we have one truck that's considered a reserve truck at this time, our tower, but it's still a daily operating truck. I didn't put this on the slide, but we did apply for a federal grant, a FEMA grant, to replace that truck. To place that truck is somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million. The grant was for $1.1 million. And that was the first time we wrote for a grant for this particular truck. Some departments are successful the first time. Sometimes it takes you a second writing to get a grant. But if we have to write a second grant writing, we will, but we have started that process. So, and like I said, we had additional cost of last year that it kind of took us over budget because we had a truck that needed an engine that needed a complete rebuild, and we did not budget for a rebuild. You don't budget for engine failures and rebuilds, but it's last few years we've had a couple of them. Next slide. So building maintenance and repair. I typically ask for $20,000 a year for building maintenance. and updates to the building. We're in the second phase of the carpet and the floor installations, and that includes repairs to potential dorm window in the lieutenant's room, and updating the captain's dorm, and maybe working on the mezzanine. I take the money again, I make it stretch and last as best I can. Sometimes I do things in phases. This is probably the third phase of the floor. It says 2, but we started with replacing parts of the old linoleum flooring and the carpeting, and we are getting ready to finish all of that after this budget goes through. We'll schedule it and we'll have replaced pretty much all the flooring and all the carpet throughout the building. And last one I have on here is exterior doors and bay doors. Been replacing through capital improvements, updating hardware on the doors. Those doors have been in place for 50 years. Other than we just replaced 3 panels, the hardware, roller slides, cables. Those doors are in excellent shape. My next thing I want to do with those doors is paint them. If you go by our building, everything is brown. It's just brown. And so my intention now is to paint the doors red. It'll look more like a firehouse, a traditional firehouse should look. And we have some exterior doors that are metal doors. And, metal doors over a period of time and weather, they rust, they don't shut completely. They don't fit well. So there are 3 doors are going to need to be replaced, but they're side exterior doors on the exteriors of the buildings. But pretty much, if everything goes accordingly, all the doors will be, after this, all the doors of the building will be replaced and new and in good shape. And that's what I got for my budget.
Thank you, Chief Hobbs.
You're welcome.
The first thing I'll say is historically, you have done a wonderful job of finding cost savings wherever you can, applying for as many grants as possible. Like that is definitely ongoing pattern. And so I'm happy to hear that that is continuing and you're finding ways to, again, offset costs and find support for us in the city, for the fire department, because you've always done a really good job of that. So
Thank you.
This is a question I don't think it's for you actually, but I'm gonna ask it out here. So for police and fire, I've now heard that both departments use contractual services or external services for like lawn maintenance and just the property maintenance. And I'm just wondering, like, why is that?
I can answer that.
Why don't we manage that in-house with like DPS or?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's a question for Bonnie.
yeah, that's why.
I can tell you why. I can tell you why we do it.
Yeah, well, you didn't have anybody.
When I hired him, we cut the grass and we whipped and we did everything and maintained it ourselves. But as our staffing levels decreased, we weren't able to provide all those functions. So now we've gotten to where we have actually probably 5 years ago now, we actually started contracting those things out.
I'm just wondering, yeah, why is that not something that we do since in-house?
It's
our-
mostly a matter of capacity. So DPS with the grounds that they have to take care of, that department just doesn't have enough people to do that as well.
Okay.
So we contract that out. And then DPS will also do a lot of the minor repairs to the facilities. But if it's something that's outside their scope, then we have to contract that.
That makes sense. Thank you. And my other question is around like some of the amounts like for truck maintenance. So the 100,000, that is an estimate of maybe what would be spent. Or
That's actual
trying to do,
dollars
like,
that's the actual dollars we spent this year.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, because you have engine testing that's done annually. You have about outside company, ladder testing, hose testing, all those are done by an outside company sourced out. And then you have all your regular maintenance and issues with our trucks. And when I do the CILs, I put trucks out of service, in service, so you guys can see what we're doing. And then so you can see, I don't think I've ever submitted a CIL without a truck out of service. There's always something out of service. And if I submit a CIL and it says all the trucks are in service, that's like, yeah, that's like, that doesn't happen.
I just wanted to make certain that folks could hear that this number is a real number and it's not just.
No, that's a real number, Reagan. And it's still climbing. We
Yeah.
got to get to end of June.
And to kind of, add on to what the chief was saying, all 3 engines are nearing, the end of their life, and those are significant expenditures. So council needs to be prepared for those. Even with the grant, you're still looking at $1 million.
That's for one truck. That's just for the tower.
Ooh,
Yeah.
All right.
On our budget calendar here, we're looking at replacing that 2027 to 2028. So it's really close.
Okay.
It's 2 million, Chief. And can you explain what happens if we don't have the truck?
Well, we have to have that truck because we have high rises in the city. They're not having the truck is not an option.
Just can't not.
Because I mean, we have town center, we have high rises on campus, we have tall buildings, we have high rises in the city. And then we're talking about allowing people to build higher in the city. So you can't get by without the truck.
Questions from my colleagues here? Okay, Councilman McLean.
I see him going like that.
know, I'm like,
I got stuff.
Waiting for the high sign. Evening, chief.
How you doing today?
Good. I don't know if this is a question for you or maybe for the manager, but when we talk about contracted services, I understand a lot of yours are particularly specialized.
Yes, they are.
But to the extent that they might be goods or services that could be purchased locally, do we give any kind of preference for local vendors?
So in our purchasing ordinance or procurement ordinance, there is a kind of a tier system. So when we bid out for goods or services, then that's something that goes into the analysis of the bid. So we do give favor to in-city 48197, 48198, county, state, and then beyond that.
In that order?
Yep.
And is
And
it,
you're limited. You're not always going to find someone in the area that can provide those services for you. That we don't have to service our engine. We have to take it to Novi. We have to take it to Flat Rock. We have to take it to Greenville. We have to take it to someone who services a Cummins diesel engine. And so we're kind of limited on where we can take this. It's just not just a diesel engine. It's a fire apparatus. There's pumps involved. There's all kinds of things. So people that specialize in fire engines specialize in fire engines.
that's why I understand that a lot of yours are specialized, but
Yeah,
if we're paying for lawn care,
that's a
I
separate.
gotta believe there's somebody in Ypsilanti that can cut the grass.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure where Hilltop is based out of. They started doing police before us, and we just had them, start, hey, and give us prices. And actually, for their prices and for what we receive, I don't have the breakdown with me. It's not that costly.
And this may also be to the manager, but are we part of any purchasing consortia or state term contracts?
Yeah, we are, which is now BidNet, used to be Mitten. And then there's also Sourceville, and that's this one, right?
We make purchases from like that when we can. My deal was how we purchased our vehicles. But last time we went on my deal to purchase the fire marshal's vehicle, they didn't even have a price listed there. Only thing they did was reference us to different dealerships, and the dealerships they referenced us to was not able to get us vehicles. We actually ended up getting vehicles through Varsity Ford, and Chief Moore now gets his vehicles through Varsity Fords, and I have other fire departments that I've recommended who are also now getting their vehicles from Varsity Ford. So Varsity Ford's getting a lot of business now.
Or local? Okay.
They're local. They're in Ann Arbor. There's no Ford dealer in town.
One other question is more specifically for you, Chief. What's our vacancy history in the department over the last, say, I don't know, 5 years?
We've had a lot of turnaround in the last 5 years. We had a lot of retirements, and we've had vacancies for a while. And to fill the positions, it's like the chief says, it's very competitive. We've had our since April, we've had it open, and I don't think when was the last time we got an applicant? Yeah. It's been at least 2 weeks since we got a new applicant, and our process is a little different. We're not sending anybody to the academy. So when you come into the fire department, we're asking you to have your firefighter 1 and 2, your hazmat ops, your CPR, and your EMT certification when you start. And so a lot of people, what they do is they go out and they get those things ahead of time anyway. We have not been in a position where we had to put people through an academy. We just have to, we do have agreement with Schoolcraft College, and it's called the Conference of Western Wayne, and they provide our written exams and our CPAT, candidate physical agility tests, and then they give us the results. So anybody who comes through this, our process comes in equally. They all have the same certifications. They all take the same physical agility test, and they all took the exact same written exam.
So we have one vacancy, right?
We have one vacancy because we had a young man left the fire service after 6 months. He just went in a whole different career direction.
Can we typically absorb one or two, or does that also then trigger overtime?
Our overtime is okay. So here we go. Our overtime budget. At some point, it was like $250,000. Our overtime budget now gets rolled into our overtime gets rolled into. We had two separate budgets. We had an overtime budget and had an extra duty day budget because there was so much going on there. Extra duty days was strictly for when we were short of staffing. Overtime was everything else. So now we have the one budget, and I'm not sure the exact number, but it's way down. What we have is a 4-person minimum staffing in our contract. So we have a 7-person staff. Okay, when we're fully staffed. So if you have 7 people on a staff, you're allowed 2 people off per day per contract. And it's what's going to happen over a period of time. You're going to eliminate your extra duty day overtime, because in order to create an extra duty day, you're going to have 4 people off on one shift. So that's the direction we're headed right now.
I just had one question regarding the lawn care.
You said-
I'm wondering, as we're getting fully staffed, will we assume that responsibility again? I know Chief.
That's something that we want to do because now they spend the time doing training and other things. It's they've gotten out of it, and could we do that? Yeah, but we're gonna have to buy a lawnmower and weed whip and all those things that we don't have anymore.
And so I'm even saying like through DPS.
Oh, so we're back to that's for a Bonnie question. My guys don't want to cut grass. I'll tell you that now. It's yeah.
I think that's also a union issue, right? If
It's
someone-
back, like I said, when I hired in, you were told to cut grass, you cut grass. Now it's not part of the job description. They don't want to cut grass.
Talk about with TPS, but I'm seeing.
Yeah.
They don't have capacity.
Are you participating in No Mo May?
I can't even answer that. No. Our grass has already been cut. The
Yeah.
contract has already been in there. You drive by our lawn, it's very it's very well kept. Yeah, you stop by sometime. I do the same thing. I'll invite you guys to council, anybody on council, anybody in the city to tour the fire department at any time. Everybody's welcome.
I'll say I participate.
Yep. So I believe we're the only department that has a water irrigation system for the lawn also. And our company that maintains our lawn also takes care of our sprinkler systems.
Yeah, sprinklers, huh?
And
Yeah, they winterize them and yeah. So
if
I don't know how that happens.
if I could add to that, if DPS were to cut those lawns, it would take overtime, which would be more costly than just contracting it out.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Cool. Further questions, any?
That was all for me.
All right, any questions down here? Let me make sure, Chief, how much you go. No, I'm kidding. I will just also say I had an opportunity to talk with some of your firefighters today, and I'm just really grateful for their work as well as the police department. We had a joint meeting, we'll say.
Yes.
And just huge appreciation for the work that both of these departments are doing and the difficult things that you all have to encounter and see. And so just thank you both, for leading your departments in the way that you're leading, because I can see the care and the concern for the community, and for each other too. That was
Right,
really nice
right.
to see them supporting each other like that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I think you're off the hot seat then.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank
Yes, have a good night.
Any further discussion? Anything, Reagan, city manager?
Nothing further for this one. The next meeting on the 30th will include DPS and then the smaller departments. And then if this committee would like, we can have an additional conversation about the budget, or if you would prefer to ask some questions now, I'll leave it up to the committee.
Any questions now for the rest of the budget? Any additional things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just one.
All right, go ahead.
I have to say, I'm a little bit fixated on the fund balance. And so I'm thinking about kind of in the big picture, where we're going. So I appreciate city manager and Reagan helping answer some questions that I had posed a few days ago. So if we could talk a little bit about that. So just to clarify, it looks like we're going to be by design running a shortfall for 24-25 and 25-26 at about 3.6 million and 3.3 million respectively in those 2 years, taking those dollars out of fund balance. The estimated fund balance at the end of 2026 would be 7.2 million. And so this is my question: of that 7.2, how much of that is restricted? In other words, how much would we still have potentially available at that point to keep doing the
Yeah,
same
unassigned.
type of thing?
So what is
So that,
My recollection is about 6 million of that is
so
not available and is restricted. Yeah.
yeah, there would be the majority would be unassigned. It's 7.2 million in the fund balance, and the unassigned it would be 5.7. So we would have 5.7 to go to that number. Let's say, you know, no, I know that's the unassigned, but what
and
is
then
the
the
latest?
remainder are the committed for our employee benefits. But then one thing here is one of the category that we usually put in the unassigned fund balance is our next year's shortfall. And by 25-26, we don't know yet what our shortfall is going to be, because we're not that far into our budget. So that 5.7 million, while it says unassigned, if there's a shortfall on the following year, that should trickle down depending on how much that is.
Are you inquiring what is like the minimum fund balance? Isn't that the 10%? Is that minimum? fund balance?
So the minimum will be 10% of our expenditure. So we shouldn't be going below around 2 million
And
or 2.6 million. What's our expenditure?
And that's something that this committee, and I know Councilmember McLean has asked about, is changing that policy and maybe allowing us a little bit more of a cushion, you know, in terms of budget. And another thing is we could look at different bonding capacities. So then we would have just a payment per year if we're looking at larger infrastructure projects. But the major things coming up in this budget are going to be the bridge, Water Street. So those, it's going to be a lot of just capital projects rather than operational.
My overall concern is a long-term concern, right?
Sure. Mhm.
That after if we run these kind of deficits in these 2 years, I don't want to be in a situation 2 years from now where we're looking at significant cuts. So I'd like to flatten off if we need to tighten the belt, we do it gradually rather than fall off a cliff.
Absolutely.
That's the general concern, right? It's more a concern, less a question. But I hope we'll all be thinking about that. There's not a lot of capacity here for new spending. I know I've heard folks talk about the funds from the marijuana dispensaries, but that's already built into these numbers.
Yes, correct.
So it's not sitting out there waiting for us to find good things to do with it.
It is not. And another thing that staff always has our eyes on is grants to try to shoulder a lot of those expenditures, but it's not going to cover everything. And we really need to prioritize the needs of the city and get a clear strategy on how to make the improvements that we need, but in a responsible way, so we can maintain a decent cushion to make sure the city will still be able to operate functionally without additional cuts that we had to do many years ago. So it is a very big concern that we want to make sure that we are careful and spend money responsibly, spend the tax dollars responsibly.
Absolutely. All right, more on that. I think there may be some opportunities to look at where there are vacancies, and knowing, Greg and I talked a little bit about this. If we budgeted for all of our FTEs for 12 full months, the reality is they're never full for the full 12 months. So
Correct.
it's possible there's a little bit of call it more truth in budgeting that gives us a little bit more cushion.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Would you like me to ask another one?
No, I don't. If you would like to ask another one, of
I'm
course.
okay for now.
All right. Okay, well then, seeing none, this is our second opportunity for public comment.
Mayor, we still have one more section. Yeah,
Oh, man, jumped that discussion. You're right, my bad. Resolutions. Okay, so we need to approve the minutes of the April 9th meeting. My apologies.
still move.
Is there support?
Or
All right. All in favor of the minutes, please say aye. Any opposed? Oh, okay. Now, discussion regarding the formal budget presentation provided.
Did I not?
What?
I
Discussion
thought
regarding
it's supposed to say format. I thought I had it changed.
formal- Okay.
I don't know what
discussion
happened there.
Regarding the format of the budget. presentation.
Yes, I must have printed the old one. So I put just an outline of what we as staff envision how at least the first presentation would go on the 14th, and we would start with an overview on why we budget, the timeline of our budget, look at our goals, both near and long term. We look at the last year's budget, the projections, the reality of where we are when we close the budget, and then rationale for our spending. And then we look into the amendments of the 23-24 budget following a similar process as the last year budget. And then we go into our future budgets. We look at those by fund, and then we would also include the committed, assigned, and then we would have that discussion about that 10% rule and perhaps changing that to something that provides the city more cushion rather than just the 10%. We look at our projected revenues, where those sources are coming from. Obviously, the majority is from our taxes, but also intergovernmental transfers and things like that. Our projected expenditures for the coming fiscal years, how those are going to be attached to goals, priorities, looking into bonding possibilities and other legally required payments that we make. Right now, we have just the two bonds. One is shouldered by a millage, and then the other one we pay out, I believe, $150,000 a year. And then capital projects that are going to be needed in the future, much like the fire engines, other facility needs. And then we maybe have a conversation about the partnerships that we have in the city. And then we look at potential risks that are facing the city that we really need to keep our eyes on and ensure that our personnel level is appropriate. look at the different infrastructure projects. Cross Street Bridge is going to be coming up and potential funding for that. And of course, the ongoing process with the dam. And then we're kind of going to look into a long-term financial impact. And that's going to be a 5-year projection, something similar to what we've done in the past. And we've also discussed a bigger kind of overview of the budget process. Is it currently working for us? The way we structure goal sessions, does that make sense? And kind of getting a better understanding is how we can do the budget process it's more functional and more useful throughout the year rather than here are our goals, now do that. And so it's more of a thoughtful process is what we're looking to change. And then obviously the discussion. And then on the 28th, we'll have our departmental presentations. And then first meeting in June would be the second reading.
Discussion on what?
Yeah, so I would just, this committee's feeling with that, does that presentation structure make sense? Will that provide the information council feels would be needed in order to make informed decisions about the budget? Would you prefer we focus on something else? We just want to make sure we're giving council the information needed to make informed decisions.
I mean, I think I'll start by saying that particularly the overview and all these initial pieces I think are important for the council, particularly with folks who, this is not common, not like you don't do this every day. And so it's important to understand why we're doing it. And for you all to kind of explain the process and what we should be looking at this year and then for future budgets. I really love the long-term financial impact and then discussion of what processes make better sense for us to make better use of our time and information. I will say off the rip, I think our goal sessions could be structured differently in terms of how we infuse those conversations throughout the year rather than just this one convo and then you go forth and make all this stuff happen. But I also think the formation of this committee is also a way to start moving towards that too. So I'm fine with the outline as you've proposed.
I would agree. One other area that I would love to see, it doesn't have to necessarily be in this cycle, but after the budget is presumably passed, that we spend a little bit of intentional time with outreach to the community and kind of presentations and sharing. The community has in general, I would say, has no idea where our budget is at. I think there are people that think we're bankrupt. They think that there are people that think we're teetering on the edge. There are people that think we're hiding lots of money somewhere. It's all over the place. And I think being transparent, being clear, and sharing of where we are would be valuable to all of us and to the process going forward.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And again, the formation of this committee is going in that direction, but I think having maybe quarterly presentations just on the budget, it's been discussed in the past, but I think we really need to focus on doing that because then it just gives throughout the fiscal year, it will give the public a chance to see where the budget is, where are we to achieving our goals, what infrastructure projects are, coming and what infrastructure projects you are going to be more imminent and things like that, just to make sure that the residents of this community understand what's coming and it's a very transparent process. I think that is incredibly important.
Any feedback on the process?
I think the outline looks fine.
Thank you. Any other discussion points on terms of the format of the budget presentation? Okay, so we'll close that discussion. And now, this is our second opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone who would like to address council in the audience or on Zoom,
No one's currently on Zoom.
burning questions for us out there? All right, well then seeing none, I will close public comment and we are adjourned.